Welcome Starfinders, what's going on guys? My name is Cody, this is Taking20, a channel about all things role-playing games. In this video, I'm going to be diving into Technomancer spells and talking about which spells are the best spells and which spells are the worst Technomancer spells. So, I hope you guys are ready. Let's get started. Okay, so before we get started, I want to start off by saying that this Technomancer spell guide is not the be-all, end-all list of spells. Please do not take this as absolute fact. This video is simply meant as a jumping off point for people who are looking for some guidance on maybe which spells they might want to take. But just due to the nature of a best and worst list, please understand that there is some subjectivity here and that you by no means have to take the spells that I mention, nor will you be gimping your character if you select different spells for your Technomancer. Your mileage may vary and that's okay, but hopefully you can still find this list of best spells useful. So let's start off with cantrips or zero level spells. So what I want you to do is to take everything that I just said as my disclaimer and throw it out the window. Because when looking at zero level spells, there's really only one place to start. And I'm sure that many Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder veterans will agree with me here. And that's that you should automatically take Detect Magic. Just take Detect Magic. Without boring everyone too much, this is probably the one spell that you will be casting the most. And the only time it's okay to not take Detect Magic is if someone else in your party already has it. And even then, I might still suggest taking it. When you're out adventuring, knowing whether something is simply a door or a magically enchanted door can be the difference between life and getting sucked into another plane of existence. So please, whatever you do, just make sure your party can cast Detect Magic. Now that that's out of the way, we can move on. Another great cantrip to take early in the game is Daze. Locking someone down while your team handles additional foes in combat for a zero level spell is pretty good. But I suggest that you only take this as part of your initial 3 cantrips. This spell loses its effectiveness very quickly, and taking it at level 3 when you gain your final cantrip isn't going to yield a lot of return on your investment. And finally, I also like mending here. You never know when you'll want to repair something like a personal comm unit, and having mending is always a great idea. And as for the level 0 spell to avoid, well, that award goes to Energy Ray, which is less than mediocre. So before we jump in and talk about level 1 spells, I want to give a big thank you to my sponsor, Miniature Market. I personally have been shopping at Miniature Market since I discovered them in 2015 because their prices are killer and they carry pretty much everything for gamers. Love board games? Got them. Big into trading card games? Got them. Looking for some tabletop miniatures? You guessed it, they got those too. And if you're looking for some recommendations, I always suggest one of my absolute favorite games, Pandemic or Ghost Stories, which are both great co-op games and a ton of fun for your friends and family. And of course, if you want to snag some serious discounts on Starfinder's full lineup, be sure to check out the link down in the description below. It'll take you guys right to everything Starfinder, and it'll let Miniature Market know that I sent you over. So whatever you're into, Miniature Market is the place for all your gaming needs. Thank you, Miniature Market, for making this video possible. When it comes to level 1 spells, the best spells you're going to find here are Overheat, Comprehend Languages, and Holographic Image. I like Overheat as the best of the damaging spells, because if you're going to spend a spell slot to damage foes in a setting with laser rifles, you want to get some bang for your buck. And that's what this does. In short, it's Burning Hands, if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder. It's a solid spell with a little bit of positioning. Comprehend Languages may be the most underrated spell in the game. In Pathfinder, it was a nice to have. Because let's face it, there were really only 10 to 12 languages that a game master might use in a campaign. And if the party didn't have it for an area that they were traveling to, usually they could come across someone who shared some type of language with them. But in Starfinder, who knows what kinds of species and races you'll encounter light years away from the pack worlds. Comprehend language is a great choice at level 1. And finally, I like Holographic Image. So Holographic Image is a variable level spell, and here's the short version of how a variable level spell works because it'll probably come up in your game. Holographic Image can be selected at 1st level, 2nd level, and on until 6th level. At each level, it does different things and is, for all intents and purposes, completely different spells. Whenever you select a variable level spell at a specific level, you can cast it at that level and any level below that. But if you choose the spell again as a known spell at a higher level later, you free up your lower spell known and may take a completely different spell. So if we selected Holographic Image as a 2nd level spell, we could cast it as a 2nd level spell with a 2nd level spell slot, or as a 1st level spell with a 1st level spell slot. Then if we choose Holographic Image again when we are granted access to 3rd level spells, we could cast it at 1st, 2nd, or 3rd level, and we would then be given the chance to trade our 2nd level Holographic Image for another 2nd level spell. If you are a creative player and enjoy being creative with illusions, then this is a solid choice for a level 1 spell, as it functions much like Minor Illusion did in the past. As far as stinkers go, I can't believe I'm going to say this, and I'm sure there's definitely going to be some people who disagree with me here, but I have to go with Magic Missile. As much as it pains me to say, Magic Missile does mediocre damage for taking up a spell slot. While you can hit up to 3 targets for 1d4+1 and the attack doesn't miss, you can only fire 1 dart at a target at a time, and I'd rather just take long arm proficiency, fire off attacks at a 1d8, and take Hold Portal, Disguise Self, or Unseen Servant, which, if you watch me play Oliver Ridley on Saber Dice, you know that I enjoy getting pretty creative with. Moving on to 2nd level spells, the first spell I really like here is Caustic Conversion. This is a ranged touch attack that, by the time you gain access to it at level 4, will basically hit for 8d4+10 and doesn't need any additional action economy in the form of concentration. So solid choice to help burn down a hefty target. And invisibility and mirror image are still every bit as good in Starfinder as they have been in Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons. While we are starting to get into that range of having some really useful spells, these, to me, seem to be the strongest choices that you can take that will always be useful. I do want to mention that Knock could be particularly useful to always have access to, but that instead of taking it as one of your known spells, this is probably one you may want to pull your party's funds together to just buy a spell gem for, which is in essence a scroll. 450 credits between 4 to 5 level 4 players is a pretty reasonable price for a level 2 spell gem. As far as which spell you should avoid, I am not a fan of Daze Monster. Simply put, you won't get to use this spell for long, and the cost of a level 2 spell known and spell slot is just way too much in my opinion. Invisibility, Mirror Image, and Caustic Conversion, which scales with you by the way, are always useful, but Daze Monster is just too limited. My opinion, skip it. Okay, let's talk about 3rd level spells. The best spell at this level is Dispel Magic. A Technomancer with Dispel Magic is just better than a Technomancer without it. Your ability to dismiss magical effects scales with you while also giving you the opportunity to counter a spell. That is powerful. And the thing about Dispel Magic is that you may not use it for 6 straight gaming sessions, but when you need it, you'll be thrilled that you took it. Now, we also get 2 very crunchy, damaging spells here in the form of Arcing Surge and Explosive Blast. These are basically Lightning Bolt and Fireball. Like Overheat at level 1, if you're going to take a spell that simply deals out damage, You want to deal out a lot of damage, and that's exactly what these two spells do. In my opinion, I like Arcing Surge's line damage a bit better, as I think it's easier to use, but 9d6 from Explosive Blast is fine too. But whatever you do, just take one. You don't need both. And finally, we have Displacement, a 50% mischance that lasts 1 round per level is solid when you back it up with a character using cover and firing off with a laser rifle, assuming, of course, you took my advice and took long arm proficiency. I wanted to add a couple of honorable mentions here for Slow and Entropic Grasp. Ultimately, I didn't find these spells to be better per se than the ones that I mentioned previously, but these are still great choices at level 3. And as for which spell I would recommend you avoid, it's actually Haste. I know I was a bit surprised too, but Haste no longer functions as it did in Pathfinder or in D&D. Haste now only gives you movement, and you won't gain any additional attacks, so it just doesn't really have an effect on the action economy used against your foes. As such, I find it really hard to justify taking this spell with so many other good choices at level 3. Okay, let's talk about level 4 spells and what I believe to be one of the most broken spells in the game. That, of course, is Resilient Sphere. I'm going to read the entire spell for you. The spell takes just a standard action, has a good range, and can target a large-sized creature and lasts 1 minute per level. Also, it can be negated by a reflex save. So here we go. A 10-foot diameter globe of shimmering force encloses the target creature. The sphere contains the target for the spell's duration. The sphere functions in the same way as a wall of force, except it can be negated by Dispel magic. A target inside the sphere can breathe normally. The sphere can't be physically moved either by creatures outside it or by the struggles of those within. This spell is ridiculous. It seriously is probably my favorite spell in the game by far. Fleeing from a ruthless gang that wants to kill you in a spaceport? Fill the hallway with a 10-foot bubble that can't be moved. Have a speeder bearing down on you to ram you? 10-foot unmovable sphere. Have another Technomancer in the party? Ready in action until they cast Corrosive Haze and then bubble the poor victim so that they can't escape. I would even reward my players for being creative. If I had a Technomancer ready in action to cast Resilient Sphere when my soldier threw a grenade, I would have no issue having the grenade do full damage and give no reflex save to the target after they've already failed the save for the bubble. Not to mention, this is great to completely take someone out of the fight instantly, granting a huge swing in action economy. Just an amazing, amazing spell. As for damaging spells at this level, Corrosive Haze is just a bit better than Rewire Flesh here. The damage is a bit higher, and it has the chance to hit more than once even if the target made the first save, and it can continue to affect the battlefield if the first target drops. So, in my opinion, this is the best of the damaging spells at this level. And finally, we have 3 very similar spells that I don't feel like have a lot of separation in power level. Those, of course, are Dimension Door, Greater Invisibility, and Arcane Eye. These are all great utility spells, and if you chose any of these, you'd be making a great choice. Of the 3, if I had to pick one that was a little bit better, I would probably go with Dimension Door. But again, it's more of a different choice than a better choice over something like Greater Invisibility. The worst spell here? Easily Creation. Let's see. Do I want to make myself invisible even when I cast spells and attack? Or should I take a spell that lets me make some wood? It's just awful. Just don't take the spell, please. Moving on to 5th level spells, we'll start with Greater Dispel Magic. If Dispel Magic is good, then Greater Dispel Magic is great. I'm not going to go into the details here. It's a more powerful version of Dispel, and it might be the best spell in the game. Next, we have Synapse Overload. I really debated taking Teleport or Resistant Aegis here instead, but Overload hits like a truck. And yes, while it is a melee range spell, by this level, you might expect your enemies to have ways of maneuvering and manipulating the battlefield to close in on you anyways. If you have no desire to take another damaging spell, especially one that requires you to be so close to your enemy, then you should probably just take Teleport here. And finally, we have Unwilling Guardian. This is a fantastic spell. Let's take one of your guys attacking us, and now they're trying to protect me. This is simply a massive swing in action economy. And the fact that the target can soak up some of the dangerous spells cast at you just completely puts it over the top for me. It absolutely belongs on the best spells list. Also, for the worst level 5 spell, I am again going with Creation. Admittedly, at 5th level, it is a lot better than the level 4 version, but really, is what you want to be doing with your powerful level 5 spells creating silver? You should take this spell if you want your character to die of boredom in their old age. And last but not least, we have our best of the best 6th level spells. So admittedly, it's really hard not to take a spell like Disintegrate for me, because who doesn't want to roll 14d20 damage? And if you have a spell that does 14d20 points of damage, can you really say that it's not a great spell? I mean, it certainly has to be one of the most fun and satisfying spells to cast. It might be impossible to roll 14d20 damage against a mouthy foe and not smile. But alas, I don't think that Disintegrate is one of the best spells in the game. I have to give that award to Interplanetary Teleport. If Greater Dispel Magic is not the best spell in the game, then this may very well be the best spell in the game. The possibilities that it opens up for a party that has access to this type of magic is significant. And there's even a huge power gap between a party that has access to this spell and one that doesn't. You can travel anywhere you want inside the solar system without even have seen the location before. And you can, in essence, forego the confines and limits of a starship if you want to travel somewhere that would require drift technology to access. Truly, this spell is amazing. Another incredibly powerful spell is Chain Surge. It's a 13d12 AoE spell that can short out an electronic device of the target. And in my opinion, this is a superior spell to Disintegrate when it comes to dishing out a lot of damage as fast as possible. And finally, I chose the spell Veil as one of the best spells in the game. It is an incredibly powerful illusion spell that makes a group of creatures look and feel like they have taken on the new shape. You could instantly make a high-level group of marauders think that they have been turned into slugs, or change the appearance of your party to resemble Vesk soldiers during an infiltration mission on Vesk Prime. The possibilities with this spell is what makes it so good, and they are infinite. As far as the worst of the best spells, that goes to Shadow Walk. So we can move with shadows. That sounds awesome. I bet we could use it to scout. Let's read what it does. And I quote, "Because of the blurring of reality between the plane of shadow and the material plane, you can't make out the details of the terrain or areas you pass over during transit, nor can you predict perfectly where your travel will end. It's impossible to judge distances accurately, making the spell virtually useless for scouting or spying." That's seriously what the spell's description says. Well, that's okay. I bet we could still use it to sneak into an enemy base, to hack the computer in their server room. Let's read a bit more. Furthermore, when the spell's effect ends, you are shunted 1d10 by 100 feet in a random horizontal direction from your desired endpoint. So please, don't take this spell. It is just it's just awful. So there you have it, the best Technomancer spells in Starfinder. Which ones do you guys agree with? Which ones do you think I got wrong? I look forward to arguing with you in the comments down below. Also guys, I'm serious when I say please check out the video's description for a full guide to all of the coverage here for Starfinder on the channel. As you guys know, I just released 14 videos for Starfinder Week covering each class and each race, so be sure to check out those, and I'll be releasing more Starfinder videos over the next few weeks. So if you're looking for a place to keep up with everything Starfinder, I've got you covered. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I'd love to have you subscribe. Every week I'll be putting out new videos on GM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just hit that subscribe button down below and come join us. Once again, I want to give a special thank you to my sponsor, Miniature Market, for making all of these videos possible. And thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.